Today's video is going to be a quick comparison between the Torklift Glowstep Revolution, these are the Uprising version here, and conventional, or we could say traditional, drawbridge style steps. Now I've got here the Morryde Step Above specifically, but these are almost identical to the Lippert Solid Step. And really primarily today's video is going to be for someone who's maybe on the fence. You know, you're looking at these Torklift steps here and you're just wondering, is there anything you're going to miss or anything that's drastically different concerning the dimensions if you've got one of these drawbridge style steps on your RV right now? And so my hope is that I'll answer those kinds of questions in today's video and really give you a nice detailed comparison of them. Now, I did a full detailed review on these steps previously, so I'll put a card up for those. Definitely check it out because it really goes through all the different benefits and problems that these steps solve over the more conventional drawbridge style steps. But again, today I'm really going to focus more on a comparison between the two so that you can kind of get a better idea of what to expect. So let's begin by doing a comparison of the basic dimensions between these two different step systems. And I should mention, part of this is going to have to do with the width of the door on your RV. I've got a 30-inch wide door here on my Jayco Pinnacle fifth wheel, and so that's going to at least dictate the width of the treads, because basically both manufacturers are trying to maximize the width of the treads based on the width of your RV door. So again, I've got a 30-inch door, but let's start by checking the width here on the Torklift Glowstep Revolution Uprising. You can see we're right at 23 inches exactly. That is the width. Let's check another one just to make sure they're all the same. Yep, all the same, so right at 23 inches. Then let's hop over here to the drawbridge steps, the Morryde Step Above, and you can see we're right at 23.5 inches. So a half-inch wider here on the drawbridge style steps. That's a pretty small difference, so basically the same on the width. Now let's check the actual tread depth. And so here on the Torklift Glowstep Revolution, it looks like it's exactly 8 inches or ever so slightly over 8 inches, and they are all the same here. All 5 steps are exactly the same. Yep, so just ever so slightly over 8 inches. Now let's check the tread depth over here. Oh wow, so we're exactly 8 inches too on the Morryde. Yep, the only catch is this top step over here on the drawbridge steps is a little bit deeper, so you can see we're right at 10.5 inches on the top, whereas all the other ones were 8 inches. So they're pretty much the same except for this top step. But I will say, if you count the projection of that top step, 10.5 inches, and then I go over here and do the projection, in other words off the RV, it's actually, oh wow, it's actually the same, so 10.5 inches. So even though the tread surface is not that full 10.5, the projection, how far it projects off the RV, that's the same between the two different stair systems. And then the last dimension that I'll give you as a comparison is the rise of each of the individual steps themselves. And I actually think this is probably one of the more important dimensions and what really sets apart the Torklift Glowstep Revolution over here. So let's check out what the rise is between the two steps. So you can see we are right at, I'm going to say 7.25, it looks like. Now I'll just point out that that rise can vary ever so slightly depending on how far you've got these steps deployed, because one of the unique advantages of the Torklift Glowstep Revolution is that you can deploy them at different pitches and different rates. And so because of this scissor action, that's going to ever so slightly change the rise between each step. You know, probably I would say maybe within a half inch or so, but most of the time you're going to be deploying them like this and right at about 7.25. Okay, and they are all the same. If I go all the way down, I can see they're all right about 7.25 on the rise. So let's hop over here to the drawbridge style steps and see what the rise is over here. So you can see we're looking at just over 8 inches, so maybe 8 1/8. So I mean, we're talking almost an inch difference on the rise between these steps. And I'll just check another one here on the drawbridge to make sure they're all the same. Yep, all the same. So again, almost an inch difference on the rise. And if you think about it, that makes a pretty significant difference because you're not lifting your foot as high as you advance to the next step. And so having a smaller rise I think in my opinion makes the step system more comfortable here on the Torklift. But let me answer a more significant question. You might be wondering, how is it that the rise on these Glowstep Revolution Uprising, how is it that the rise is significantly less compared to the rise on these conventional drawbridge style steps? Because remember, these drawbridge steps were mounted and installed on the same RV here, and the height of my RV has not changed. The height from the ground to the entry door here, the threshold, has not changed. So how is it that the rise is so different between these two different stair systems? And the answer lies in part due to the fact that on the Glowstep Revolution Uprising, they have this really nifty feature with an extra booster step down here. And so I got the 4-step model, but it comes with that 5th booster step, which you can see that I've got deployed right now. So I've got 5 steps over here on the Glowstep Revolution Uprising, but check this out, only 4 steps over here on the drawbridge style steps. And so that in part is to explain why the rise is significantly less on the Torklift steps over here, because I've got that extra step. This is a really cool feature. I talk about it way more in depth in the review, so definitely check it out. But basically you get to choose at your campsite whether you want 5 steps or 4 steps. And so just depending on your campsite, if it's, you know, pitched and unlevel over here, whether it's up or down, you can then deploy that extra step there, that booster step. And so I think for me, probably half the time I'm going to have it deployed like this with all 5 steps, and then maybe the other half, depending on the campsite, I'll just have 4 steps. But that in part is to explain why the rise is different. But check out this over here too, because this is another difference talking about the rise, and that is this top step here. I don't know if you noticed, but the distance, the rise here on this top step to your threshold is significantly less here on the Glowstep Revolution Uprising. And let me open the door of the RV so you can kind of see this a little bit better. But check out the distance here when you're on this top step and you're going into the RV to the threshold. And I'll just pull out the tape measure again to give you an idea what that is. It's right at about 4 inches. So when you're going up these steps, you know, it's about 7 1/4, let's say, going all the way up till you get to this top one. And instead of having 7 inches to climb up into the RV, you've got only about 4 inches right here. And that's another big difference between the two stair systems, because if we hop over here to the conventional drawbridge style steps, and this is going to be the same whether you've got the Lippert Solid Steps or the Morryde Step Above, but again, you've got about 8 inches, a little over 8 inches going up each of these steps, and that includes this top one. So you've got the same amount, the same rise going all the way up the stair system, whereas over here you've got a much shorter rise on this last step. Now, I personally really like that difference. I view it as a big advantage over here on the Glowstep Revolution, because if you think about it, you know, when you're coming out of your RV, you're transitioning from one space to another. And so instead of having a big 8-inch drop, you know, coming out of your RV to that first step, you've got almost like a mini landing out here, where literally the height of your floor inside the RV here is ever so slightly lower out here, and so it just feels a lot safer, I think a lot more comfortable coming out. It's just like almost a mini landing coming out of your RV. Now, as far as comparing the actual grip on the treads themselves, both systems take slightly different approaches. You can see over here on the conventional drawbridge style steps, there's these little grip marks that are kind of, I guess, stamped into the aluminum treads, and then on the front it goes smooth with grip tape across the front here, and that's all the same across the different treads. Whereas over here on the Torklift Glowstep Revolution, you can see there's no grip tape, and instead they've got that pattern kind of starting on the tip. It's even on the nose right here, and then they've got some plain space here where it's smooth, and then some more grip, about I'd say a little over 1 inch between each gap there. And so I'm just going to real quickly kind of impromptu put my foot on each of the treads and kind of slide them across. This is very subjective obviously, but just to try to give you an idea, is there really one advantage between the two? And so as I try to drag my foot, it feels very firm on these. Let me hop over here and just see if I notice any difference. You know, it's just kind of different. The grip tape, I will say, definitely helps on these, but I'd almost say over here it feels a lot smoother. So I mean, basically once I get past this grip tape, I feel like my shoes can move across this a lot easier compared to this pattern over here. So I'd almost say I think I prefer the pattern here. This tighter, I guess, stamping or tighter pattern of the line seems to be a little bit more grippy, But again, that's just my subjective opinion. Either way though, with both of the different stair systems, I don't think you're going to be slipping on them, and that goes for whether they're dry or wet. So it's really just two different approaches on the grip. But let me call attention to one other difference that I'm going to point out here in this video, and that is the materials that are used on both of the different stair systems. So over here on the Torklift Glowstep Revolution Uprising, we've got all aluminum on the treads. We've got aluminum on the scissor action here on the brackets. And then we've got stainless steel bolts. So all the hardware is stainless steel. And it's my understanding that there's bushings in between where metal on metal is, so that over time, as these weather and they're exposed to the elements, you still get that nice smooth scissor action in and out on the moving parts. So that's on the Torklift Glowstep Revolution Uprising. Then over here on the conventional drawbridge style steps, again, these are the Morryde Step Above. It's going to be pretty much the same, I think, for the Lippert Solid Steps. But you've got aluminum on the treads, so that's the same. But then on the outside, I believe this is more of like a steel that's been, I suppose, maybe powder coated or something that's very durable with the paint. So you've got a different material on the outside. And then as far as the hardware goes, I think, I could be mistaken, but I think this is more like a zinc plated or coated with these little rivets that they used. Now, I can't speak for these here, but on my last RV I had the Lippert Solid Steps, and I do remember that some of these rivets started showing rust. You know, basically what would happen is when they're unfolded, exposed to the elements, and then it rains, water would kind of pool up inside of these little rivets. And so, you know, I noticed after about a year of ownership, they started to rust. And so my solution was I just took some silicone and put it kind of in that hole where the rivet is so that it wouldn't happen anymore. But that is one thing where I think the Torklift team really, you know, thought out all the different design elements here, putting the stainless steel, because they're really looking to make something that holds up over the long run. Okay, so those are the basic comparisons that I wanted to make between conventional drawbridge style steps and the Torklift Glowstep Revolution Uprising. And like I said earlier in the video, I made this video specifically for people that already own the drawbridge style steps on your RV and you're kind of on the fence as to whether you should upgrade to these Glowstep Revolution Uprising. So hopefully I answered those questions. I mean, I think you can see you really don't lose anything in terms of dimensions. I did do another more detailed review on these steps where I discuss all the different features and benefits, the flexibility. I mean, they really do solve a lot of problems. So definitely check out that video. And if you've got any more questions on these particular steps, definitely drop me a comment below and I'll do my best to answer them. Be sure to give me a thumbs up if you found this video helpful. And as always, thanks for watching.